Yeah, good to see everybody today. Just want to start by saying again how much I appreciated our fans and the environment they created Saturday. I know it was a challenge with the adjustment of game time and the heat, but was really appreciative of them being here. And, I thought we played well Saturday. Tape looked as good as I thought it was going to. So there's a lot of positives there. A lot of guys played. There's things to correct, which is always good too. So we worked on that yesterday. And now we're on to South Carolina. I appreciate our fans' response selling out this game. I believe it's our 16th in a row. There was one previous, I think, since 2016. So that's a heck of a deal for our fan base, and just appreciate their commitment to us in creating an environment in Faurot Field that can be very intimidating. South Carolina is a very good football team. They have a lot of momentum right now in their program, from last year to now with the way they ended that season. Their quarterback is an excellent player, all SEC preseason, a Heisman frontrunner, an absolutely great player, as we know firsthand with the way he played against us last year. Got really good players in the offensive positions. I think Nick Harbor, again, played excellent against us last year. Is a dynamic return player, has elite speed and size, has grown as a wideout. Got really good lines of scrimmage, All-American at the tackle position, from last year. And then the running back, 7th year playing college football, is a really explosive player, really good player, changes their scheme offensively. So got our hands full there. Defensively, I think Clayton White does an unbelievable job. They lost some guys last year, but when you watch the tape, you don't really notice it. I think they've replaced them not only with good players, but they wear a lot of the same numbers, which is a little bit of a challenge. But obviously they're led by Dylan Stewart, the All-American defensive end, who is as good a defensive end as there is in this league. Elite combination of speed, power, physicality, really plays at a high level. I think their other defensive end, Brian Thomas Jr., is a very physical player, does a really good job. They've replaced their two interior guys, which I thought last year was as strong as there was in the SEC, and these guys are really good. Obviously, Jay Johnson was the defensive player of the week nationally. I think week 1, he's an excellent player. And they've got several guys coming back off of injury at secondary, so they appear to be getting healthy. So really difficult scheme in the way they play on defense. And then obviously special teams, Coach Beamer does an excellent job there. They always create an advantage. The return units are elite. Their punt returner has 3 touchdowns in 3 games. More than the SEC combined. So they always try to create an advantage in that phase, whether it's through fake punts, fake field goals, most recently, return opportunities. They had a big big reverse against us last year that led to their drive to win the game. So it's a really big challenge in all 3 phases. Going to be a really big challenge for our team. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Eli? Coach, with the quarterback situation, seems like as of right now some uncertainty around Lenore Sellers. Just how are you prepping for what you might or might not see at quarterback for them?
I anticipate Lenore's to play.
Over here, Gabe.
Along those lines, Eli, I think last year was the first year of the injury report or the availability reports.
What is it, an availability report or an injury report based on last week?
Yeah. What I'm asking is that working, and are those a thing you guys pay attention to during the week?
I'm not going to step into Lane's business here, so I'm not going in there.
Not specifically him, just in general.
Yeah, it's not really for us. It wasn't created for the coaches. It was created for transparency because of other industries that are tied to college football. And so I would say you'd have to ask those guys. Regarding the quarterback situation, Luke Doty's played a quarterback, another guy that's played a lot of college football. We've played against him before. I remember recruiting Luke out of Myrtle Beach High School when I was at NC State. Really good player, But I don't think their scheme's going to change any. He's not Lenoris, but he's a very good and capable player. So, for us, there's not two stylistic differences in the way that quarterback position is going to be played. So for us, we're going to anticipate that Lenoris will play, and then we'll adjust if he does not.
Back on this side with Cal.
It seems like asking you about mobile quarterbacks just about every week.
Yeah.
Sellers might be a cut above just your average mobile quarterback as well. What is it about his game, his elusivity that makes him so challenging to defend? Yeah,
I mean, he's listed as preseason All-SEC first-team quarterback for a reason. That would tell us all he's a cut above. He's got a unique build and frame. He's really strong, hard to tackle in the pocket, hard to wrap up, makes incredible decisions and plays when the play is broken down. So, I think that's always a challenge, especially when you're playing defense. If you're in man and he breaks the pocket, then he's going to take off and run. And if you're playing zone, it's hard to keep a zone cover when your focal point is moved. So how does that zone move with it? So it's an extremely difficult challenge. He is an elite player.
On the left.
Coach, how are you? You mentioned last week you were looking for more out of Connor Tollison.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering for you, is it important to be able to have leaders like him you can maybe send pointed messages to, have him receive it well, and then almost have it filter down maybe to other players?
Yeah, I think you got to always coach your best players the hardest. I think it sets the tone for everybody in that room that they know that if you're coaching the best players the hardest, then the standard for them is the same. I thought Connor had his best game this year. Our outside zone scheme is predicated on the center being able to reach the front side shade or three, and he was able to do that all game, even when we got tired. So, that was a step in the right direction. Now we've got to consistently do it. But, yesterday's meeting, I coached Dante McClellan just like I coached Bo Prabula. When there's mistakes on tape, you call it out, and there's no favorites and there's no babying around the issues. And that's the brotherhood we live in.
Back here on the right.
Eli, with Mike Shula taking over as offense coordinator, Coach Beamer has talked about how they really haven't had too many schematic changes because of that. Does that kind of track what you've seen from them the first 3 weeks, and what challenges have they presented schematically?
Yeah, obviously Coach Shula was there with him last year as an offensive analyst, and him and Coach Loggins, co-created the plans each week, and so there's a lot of carryover. Each play caller has their own flavor of how they call games and what specifically they're doing to implement the game plan. There is some subtle differences in the run scheme. There's more quarterback-driven run, +1 runs, I would say, than there was probably last year. I think there's more drop-back concepts, and maybe that's just year 2 of growth with Lenoris and something that he's more comfortable with. But finding explosive, being creative, utilizing empty, that's stuff that they did last year and did effectively versus us.
Watching the game back, it looked like Louisiana found a little bit of success with some slot blitzes. Just when you were watching film, what did you see that they did well, and what's maybe the coaching point for Bo to counter that?
Yeah, they got there was 3 real times they had pressure. The first one was an overload pressure. They got us in a 5 call, and then they blitzed the Mike and the safety and dropped 2 players. Really we're kind of in a tough spot. They brought what would appear to be 7, and we only had 6. For us, we're going to have to. We always want to be stronger up the middle. We would have to have a squeeze technique there on the front side and try to throw the hot over the ball. The slot blitz off the boundary out of empty, that's something we got to see. And that's actually the play that we coached, one of the plays that we coached up yesterday. They had 3 over 2 in an empty formation, and they had 3 over 3 to the field. That's never going to be the case if it was just going to be zone. You would have 4 over 3 to the field, and you could potentially still have 3 over 2, but you wouldn't have 3 over 3. Somebody's got to be pressuring. So something for us to notice and get better at. And then the other pressure was a field pressure where our outlet was the flat as the hot, which is exactly who Bo threw it to, and it was a touchdown. So that's the risk reward you play with having hots. So things we can all be better at.
Make over your bye.
Eli, obviously you want your guys sharp for every game, but to what degree do you reiterate or underscore that it's the SEC opener this week? And what does it mean to try to get off to a fast start in the conference?
Yeah, I think as you elevate your program, we talk about being 1-0 every week and the importance of a nameless, faceless opponent. And last week I think the focus was not to allow our opponent to dictate our preparation or performance, and I thought our guys really responded to that. Our guys understand the significance of playing in the SEC. They understand that the level of competition raises, the importance of all the little things rises. They understand the importance of being 1-0, this week. I don't really think we have to hammer that or say that. I think that's been the enhanced growth of the program over the last 3 years. It's a SEC night game. We've only had 3 since 2021, while others in the league have had way more than that. It's an awesome opportunity for us to take advantage of that. But the reality of it is the separations and the preparation you put in this week, and the most important thing we can control is have toughness Tuesday, not trying to play on emotions on Saturday.
You're in the middle.
Coach, you had some rotation at the right guard spot through last week. Do you anticipate more rotation there in game going forward?
Yeah, that won't change.
Right here.
Eli, identity-wise, I know we're only 3 weeks into the season, but what did you see identity-wise from your team that you can feel like you can build off and would make this team successful in SEC play? We want to be a team that can stop the run the ball, and cover kicks at a high level. And we've seen that really for the first 3 weeks. So we just need to continue in that trajectory. There's situational things throughout the game that we talk about, executing, playing well under pressure, that has shown up for us that we just want to continue to grow in those areas. I think our team is aware of that. 3 weeks is just that. It's a small sample size. So, don't want to get too high or too low off of it. Just continue to move in that direction.
Right left with Gabe.
Your defense, I think, has faced the second fewest plays in the country of teams.
That's a new stat. I didn't know. That's a good one.
You've only been on the field for 147 snaps. You have one guy who's played 100 plays on defense. What is the benefit these last 9 weeks of the season of, guys basically probably playing the equivalent of only a game and a half, 2 games so far?
Fresh horses run fast races. So, I think we've done a good job of keeping guys fresh, and hopefully that continues to show. None of that stuff will matter if we don't play really well Saturday night and play fresh and powerful, and that's what we got to try to do. I do think our coaching staff has done a pretty good job of rotating and getting younger guys looks so that we feel confident in those guys playing in key situations.
Eli.
Coach, another stat for you. You guys had 2 touchdowns on opening drives. Last year, you're 3 for 3 on offense to start this year with TDs on opening drives. Just what's working there? Is there anything different? And what's the value of starting quick like that?
Starting fast is always important. Establishes the tone and lets everybody settle into a rhythm, whether it's offensively or defensively. I don't know if there's a specific formula. Obviously, Kirby and the offensive staff have done a really good job designing plays and having a scheme ready to go and attack, and our guys have done a really good job executing those plays. So, all this stuff and all those stats are great when you look back on them, but that doesn't mean anything this week. So we gotta start that process over again this week.
Just on that, I know there's some stuff you can't say about the weekly prep, but what is it that Kirby does well during the week to be able to prep for those opening drives in particular?
Oh, I think Coach Moore is an outstanding preparer. The amount of hours that he puts in watching tape, understanding defensive schemes, having answers for the coverages and the fronts and the pressures, knowing the plays that we want to attack them with, and then having answers for that. He's got an army of people that he trusts, not just our coaches on the field, but his analyst crew that work in the engine room. I think those guys,
again, there's a lot of continuity there, so there's an understanding of what we're all looking for and what we're all seeing. They speak the same language. There's great communication throughout the week. There's a good sample size of ideas, but also not just nobody's just adding on. They kind of understand what is Kirby looking for, what do our players do well, and this could fit. And then I think the biggest thing is low ego, high output. If he doesn't like it, he doesn't like it. And we're all good with that. We all understand at the end of the day, he's the one calling the plays, and so he's done a really good job.
I think you had said last week when you were recruiting Kevin Coleman that you didn't give up because he had turned you down a few different times. I was curious, did the recruiting pitch change at all as you tried to recruit him multiple times, and then just what has he brought to the program?
Yeah, obviously the recruiting pitch changed quite a bit this time. But I think the biggest thing he's brought to us is maturity into that room. I think, losing Theo and Luther last year, you lost a lot of production and maturity, and being able to add Kevin, who's a dynamic playmaker, but also a guy who has brought that room together, on and off the field. I think they do a really good job spending time together. And he's got a drive to prove himself at this level, with this team for his state, which has been fun to watch.
Right there in the middle.
Coach, the front seven's been in the backfield a lot through these first 3 games, one of them being Josiah Trotter. What have you seen out of him through this opening part of the season that you really liked?
Yeah, physical downhill player who does a great job preparing throughout the week so that he can play fast.
Stay there.
Coach, Dylan Stewart's among the best defensive players you're going to face all year. What type of challenges does he present, and how do you go about attacking him and attacking their defense?
Yeah, Dylan creates a tremendous amount of pressure on you because of his ability to play the run. Most people in these kind of situations would say they want to play a read game with him, but he does an unbelievable job on his mesh charge. He's vertical, plays hard at the quarterback, does a really good job of getting around blocks, can sustain and hold the C gap when he's against a tight end. Obviously is really difficult to handle one-on-one. So, it's a challenge. I bet Clayton would love for us to tell you exactly how we're going to play this game, but we're not going to. I think that's the cat and mouse game, schematically. But there's also a measure of just you got to play the game. There's certain things that we do that we got to be able to do, and it doesn't matter if it's whoever's over there. We got to be able to execute it. If we're going to be the team that we want to be. So there'll be a little bit of this is what we got to do to neutralize or attempt to neutralize him. He's going to make plays. He's going to make tackles. He's going to run you down from the backside. He's going to defeat a block on the front side and make a play. Just got to try to minimize the impact he has overall.
Finish up in the back.
Coach, I wanted to ask about Ahmad Hardy and what kind of growth you've seen from him in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, really just proud of Ahmad, really from when we went to Harmon's Jamaica and got a chance to spend more time with him and see his work ethic and kind of who he is with his personality. And then obviously the TikToks or whatever of him riding a horse. And then just his connection with our team has been really cool to watch. The first couple of carries, I'll be honest, week 1, I was like, oof, I haven't seen this player before, because that wasn't kind of how he was all camp and what we saw on tape. And then I think once he just settled into playing football and not really worrying about all the other stuff and just running the way he's built and God's given him the ability to run, he's really been special. His ability to break tackles, it reminds me very much of Cody and at times Tyler Beatty. But he's got an explosiveness to him that's more similar to Tyler. So, it's really been remarkable. I can't say enough about the job that Coach Looper's done. Obviously, when you have Tyler Beatty, who's rushed for 257 versus Vandy, you had Cody Schrader, who had 300 and something all-purpose yards versus Tennessee, and then you got Ahmad Hardy rushed for 250. that's three pretty special performances out of running backs that he's coached. So, and that's not to take anything away from other guys that we've had. You know, Larry Roundtree was pretty sporty, and Nate Noel and Marcus had some really good stuff for us last year. So, but we're really pleased with where he's at, and we're going to need his best this week. You know, they got a really, really good defense. They're really stingy against the run. They got two great linebackers, two interior players that muddy it up with their movements. And he's going to have to be his own blocker at times, so he's going to have to rush hard again and see if we can't get a couple of first downs.
All right, Coach, thank you.
Yep, M-I-Z. Did Shane announce anything during his press conference or no?
He said the injury report comes out tomorrow night, so